Alrighty, so this is going to be the video going through Halo Source project from start to finish. Once you open the project, you're going to be on this project tab right here, and so we have the different tabs over here on the bottom left. When you first open your project, you're going to want to make sure that you save it, so there's multiple ways to do that. You can either go to File and then Save, or if you're back on the Project tab, then you can just click the little floppy save disk. So when you first open a project, you've saved it, you're going to want to right-click over here, click on Project, click Edit Project. Need to do, let's change the project name to My Halo Source Project. Create a new project. You'll want to rename this something intuitive, kind of like a Radwell underscore sales, Radwell underscore sales, and then underscore your initials if you're doing some development. The rest of these, your active environment by default is going to say production. So later on we'll go ahead and show you how to create a different environment. The rest of these down here, you're going to keep the same. And then anything on the advanced tab you can leave, as well as the diagnostics tab. So with the project tab, it's really just coming in here and renaming the project. So I'm going to click OK. And then if you remember from training, we have the extraction profiles. So here we can actually create, we have serial versus parallel. So we can either extract the data. By default, everything uses parallel by dependencies. But if we right-click and create a new extraction profile, we can create a extraction profile that is serial sort order. So the only thing you need to do is come down here, select serial sort order, and then name this whatever you want. We already have serial created, so I'm going to leave it created right here. So that's the big thing you want to know here. Also, if you remember, every time anything is done with data in Source, so whether it is extracting a table or processing a cube, anything that really touches a database and creates new processes on the back end, SQL Server, that's going to be done here in the processing log. So you're going to be able to see the last 15. If you want to change that, you can go back into the Advanced tab. And change this from 15 to whatever you want. And then those are going to be logged in processing log on the project tab. So here you can see whether it was successful or it was an error, what environment it was run in, start and end duration. Some of these are more admin features. We can also see what was actually done. If you want to actually see, so here we see there was an error. If I click on it and click show, you'll be familiar with this pop-up. And then once you see this error, I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to drill into the tree until I get to the bottommost level, and then you'll be able to hover over this, and we can see it says conversion failed when converting date or time from string. So we know to go into this table, and we probably have some issue with date in there. So I'm going to close that out. And so after we've done this, the next step is to go to the data connections. So by default, you are going to have the production environment. You're not going to have the development. So if you are going to be pulling from a production versus a development environment, you're going to come in and you're going to right-click on environments, and you're going to create a new environment. And you would call this development. We already have a development environment created, so I'm going to leave that. And by default, you're going to have analysis services, reporting services, mail. There's going to be one of these SQL Server data connections called source, and then one called staging area. Staging area is just put here because Halo Source assumes you're going to have at least one source. So if you do have a SQL Server source, which a majority or if not all of your sources are, then you're going to right-click on the source data connection. And you can come in, and then you're going to name it really whatever you want to. Make it something intuitive so that way you know, hey, this is the server name and then the database name. And if you remember, you're going to have one data connection per database. So you can see here that we have the RAD P21 server with the P21 database, RAD P21 server, and the Radiant database, as well as with the legacy servers and databases. So once we edit the connection string, you name it, then you're going to go into edit connection string. Here you're going to put the server name. If you have a specpc.com, but that's just because I'm remote and using VPN. So, I'll need to do that, but you may just be able to just do the RAD P21 SQL. Also, if you use Windows Authentication, you'll more than likely just be able to use that if you're an employee. And then you'll come down here and you'll select the databases. For some reason, if this drop down and it's just blank, it means you don't have access. And so you need to figure out if someone needs to give you access to the server that you have specified up here. If you do have access, you'll see a list of databases that you're given access to in SQL Server. So you're going to select it. And then obviously, since this is a source, you're not going to click Create Database because it already exists. Then you always need to click Test. And it succeeds. For some reason, if the database didn't exist, you click Test, and it's going to say cannot open P21 by the login. So this means that you either don't have access to it or it doesn't exist. So make sure you click Test every time. So I'm going to click OK. And then that's all you need to do for the data connections. For the source connection, so again, one connection per database. So you're going to do that for all of the source data connections. So we have 1, 2, 3, skip staging, 4, 5, 6 data source connections, right? So we're pulling from 6 different databases. We also need to configure where the cube is going to live, which is the analysis services database. So I'm going to right click on that, edit SSAS connection. I'm going to type in the server name. So this is the production environment, so it's RAD Halo. You need to select the SQL Server version. It's especially important if you have analysis services 2005 or earlier, but we know that we're 2012, so I'm going to leave it on this. We have the option to choose between multidimensional and tabular. For our purposes, we really just need to focus on multidimensional. You could have a use case where you need to do that, but that can be discussed at a later time. And then right here for the database, this is where our cube is going to live, and right now it currently doesn't exist. So what you would need to do is come in and name it something intuitive. So you can do radwell _sales _SSAS. Usually, just as a best practice, I like to put SSAS. And then you're going to want to click Create Database. Currently, this one already exists. So if I click Create Database, it's going to say it already exists. But if it didn't, it would say successfully created. That's all you need to do here. So you're going to click OK. And then the last thing you need to do is go to the staging area, because this is where your relational, your SQL data is going to live that you pull in from the various data sources. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do edit connection string again, and this is going to be the SQL Server source. And just like with analysis services, I'm going to come down here and select a database, and more than likely you're going to have to create a new one. So this is going to be where you pull the P21, the Radiant data, the reporting data, new catalog, RAD01, price tool data. It's going to be all pulled into this one SQL Server database. So name it something intuitive. Mine here I have called radwell _staging. Usually try to tag it with staging so you know it's the staging database. Should anybody go into the SQL Server and want to know where the data is being kept, again, you're going to want to press Create Database. But for this project, this already exists. So press OK. And then make sure you click Test as always and click OK. Then should this version right here be blank, you'll get an error later on as you try to extract. So if this is blank, what you want to do is you want to come up to check connection and click it. And then once it says this is successfully completed, you're going to see that the version number actually does pop up. And one thing important to note is for some unknown reason this might say yes, which would mean if you try to pull data into the staging database right here, it wouldn't let you because this is specified as read-only yes. So just note that this should be no. By default it should be, but on the data connections, right, was created where the cube's going to go. We've created our 6, and then we've told it where the SQL, the relational data is going to live. So once we've specified all of these, and again, remember, if you do a bunch of stuff with data, you can go back. There's no issue with that. It's something is important to note is once you create these other environments, what environment you're actually doing your work in. So basically, if I'm doing development, it's going to go to development, and then it's going to go and it's going to use these and then the Halo Radwell SSAS. And then if I was to click production, then it would be like, okay, I'm going to pull the data from these. So it's going to pull actually from production this time, and then it's going to put into the production SQL database and the Radwell staging database, rather the Red Halo SQL Server and the Radwell staging database. From there, we can move